people are coming in. We have 50 people in chat right now. We have 50 people in chat right now. I'm just gonna give a couple of, maybe like a minute for people to roll in.
Okay.
But thank you all for joining us. All right. Hi, everyone. Hey, Preston. Good to see you here. All right, so we're pretty much at 100 people right now. I can make sure that everyone is in the Zoom link. We are streaming right now to Facebook Live and to twitch.tv. So for those of you who are tuning in from there, feel free to join the Zoom link in the description so that you can participate in Q&A and submit your questions. Feel free to type in chat right now to say hi to everyone. There's a lot of people. Okay, I think we are ready to get started. So hi everyone, my name is Chloe Shi, and I am the producer of today's event, A Time to Lead, featuring Lea Salonga, Cecilia Mejia, and Abigail Hing Wen. And today's event will be a 90-minute program where we are going to go into an hour panel that is going to be moderated by our very own Abigail. And then we have a 30-minute Q&A that's going to be kicked off by our partner orgs. So again, this panel is streamed onto Facebook Live on Love Vote Taipei by Abigail Hing Wen. That's the Facebook page that we're streaming on. And then we're also streaming on twitch.tv/lovevote-taipei. Just to note, this panel will be recorded so that we can save the memories. So thank you all for joining. I just wanted to do a quick shout out to our partnering orgs. I'm going to share my screen really quickly and show you. All right. Here are all of our partners that are working with us today. Thank you so much for bringing in all your API community members. Shout out to Twitch Asian Guild, LinkedIn Asian Alliance, Salesforce Asia Pac Force, Confluent APIs and Allies, Pinterest Asians at and Filipinos at, Asian Google Network, Harvard Asian American Alumni Alliance, and Harvard Wood. Thank you all for joining. You're going to hear from representatives from these orgs later. So get excited to see who the faces are behind all these logos. And also, I wanted to do a quick special thank you to Olivia Chen and Clarissa Delis Reyes for connecting all the ladies here so we can have this epic panel today. Oops. All right, I am going to stop share. I wanted to kick this off by introducing our lovely moderator, Abigail Hing Wen. I first met her in February at a fireside chat at Facebook, and I was just so blown away to be able to meet someone of her caliber. Not only is she an executive in VC and AI in Silicon Valley, but she's also been a writer for over 12 years, and she's published her latest novel, Love Vote Taipei. So check it out. But in January, when it was released, it hit the New York Times bestseller list. And now it's been optioned for film in Hollywood by Ace Entertainment, which is a team that did To All the Boys I Loved Before. So the book is #1 on Audible's rom-com list and is also on Audible's top 20 in 2020 list. So Abigail is really dope. She's been featured in all kinds of news sites like NBC News, Bloomberg, Entertainment Weekly, and many more. She brings diverse stories into mainstream media, and now she's an exec producer for the film adaptation of Love Vote Taipei. Abigail, it's an honor to work with you today, and I'm excited to hear what the panel is all about. So I'm going to hand it off over to you to kick it off.
Ooh, she's on mute.
Abigail, you're muted. It's okay. From the top. Go for it.
Right. Great. Well, I was saying thank you, Chloe, for all the work that you put into making today's event a success. And I'm just really grateful for our partnership and having the chance to work with you. I want to give you a shout out too as well for your new Spotify podcast, Happy Hour at Home. I know that you just have 2 episodes in the world now, but it's a podcast about unfiltered stories and career, relationships, and life in the modern world. So everyone definitely check it out. So thank you all for being here. I'm really excited for today's discussion. And before we get started, I did want to take a moment to talk about the current events of the past few weeks. I don't think any of us are ever going to forget the image of the police officer kneeling on George Floyd's neck. His death is deeply, deeply unjust, and the ongoing reaction that we're seeing around the world and in our country is really a testament to how long this injustice has been going unseen and unaddressed. And I just really want to take this moment to recognize what the African American community is experiencing right now. As a child, my family and I were once taken into custody at the US border overnight, which I described briefly in Love Boat Taipei. Yellow Rose, which we'll talk about today, also features 2 raids by the US Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So these are things that I think the Asian American community can understand and sometimes be afraid to talk about. And I think that our panel today was intended to kind of bring some of these things to the light. We are here to talk about art, immigration, and humanitarian issues, originally as part of Asian Pacific Heritage Month. But I'm glad that we're also here to have this dialogue on the eve of what I hope is going to be real change in race relations going forward. So I want to turn now to my fellow panelists, Cecilia and Leah. If you guys can turn on your computers or turn on your video.
Hiya.
Yeah, yes, hello.
Hello.
All right, so Cecilia is a first-generation Filipino-American. She was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and has produced a number of films focused on critical social impact issues. She has mostly recently served as the lead producer of the film I just mentioned, Yellow Rose, which was acquired by Sony and will be coming out soon. It follows the journey of a young illegal immigrant in Texas as she's torn from her mother and tries to find her place in America. And I actually had a chance to watch it and I really, really love it. Cecilia's film work is also informed by her career experience with grassroots and nonprofit organizations, including NGOs at the United Nations, and her academic studies, which include a master's degree in public administration and affairs, and the Columbia Business School's emerging nonprofit leadership program. So Cecilia is combining her love of film and social impact work with under-resourced youth through some of her other nonprofit work, and was recently featured in Forbes magazine. So Leah Salonga needs no introduction, but I have to say that I sang every word of your songs throughout my childhood and even watched footage of your very first auditions that somehow made it onto the web. So it's incredibly meaningful for me to share this conversation with you today and to have had you as a role model as you broke so many barriers for Asians and Asian Americans in Hollywood.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here. It's so exciting.
Yes. So for the few who don't know, Leah is a multiple award-winning actress and singer. She's best known for her Tony Award-winning role in Miss Saigon. And in addition to the Tony, she has won the Oliver Drama Desk, Outer Critics Circle, and Theatre World Awards in the field of musical theater. She was also the first Asian to play Eponine in the musical Les Mis on Broadway, which is one of my all-time favorites. And she returned as Fantine in the 2006 revival. So I think most fans of all ages recognize that Leah was the singing voice of Princess Jasmine from Aladdin and Fa Mulan for Mulan and Mulan 2. So I am so thrilled to be in conversation with these amazing women. So why don't we go ahead and just dive right into the panel.
Okay.
I thought we could talk about our backgrounds and journeys to where we are today. So Cecilia and Leah, I'll ask you to share. I'll share a bit of my own journey, and then we have a few questions, but really most of the rest of the time I'm hoping to spend on audience Q&A.
Okay.
All right.
Go, Cecilia.
Oh, me first?
Okay. Yeah, you first.
So Celia, tell us
Me
your story.
Oh, man. My story.
How did you become a filmmaker, and how your prior work has informed your work today?
I think I became a filmmaker. No, I became a filmmaker by accident. I always loved film. It just never thought or occurred to me that I could do it. Just never felt like a possibility. And I think most Asian Americans can relate to that. It's not a practical thing to be in the arts. But I was always drawn to the creative. And then I, sort of found my lane through public advocacy and nonprofit work. And through that, met Diane Paragas, who is the director of Yellow Rose. She actually was coming to, it was about, oh my God, almost a decade ago, without aging myself. She came to I was a baby. I was in my 20s. Oh, I'm still aging myself. Anyway, yeah, she came to the office of the Filipino American Legal Defense Fund, where I was working, and I was also doing work with the UN at the time with the immigrant community. And she was like, I'm doing research on a film about immigration and about this undocumented girl from Texas. And I was like, oh, I'm in. And it just started off as that. I was really just gonna write grants for her, and then it just like slowly morphed into other things. And in between that, like time span between making Yellow Rose and meeting Diane, I got involved with other filmmakers and just started working there, and got really lucky. Ended up in a nonprofit that was allowed me to work on films and work with students. So it was like, sort of um, it was fate working its magic. And then we got to do Yellow Rose and work with Leia, so that was also a dream come true, because Leia was also, she was the only person I ever saw that had any semblance of what, well, I don't look like Leia, but you know what I mean.
The skin tone's pretty close though.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so that's really how it all started, and I feel very lucky to be able to meld all of that. And then even now to be able to do what I guess I never knew what it was until recently, like social impact work and production at the same time, has been really a gift, I think. I'm really grateful for that.
Okay, is it my turn now?
Yes,
Okay.
Leah, tell us about your background in the arts and how it's
Okay,
humanitarian
as far
efforts.
as my background in the arts, I started performing when I was 7. I started doing musical theater, and then started making records and doing film and television work. Then auditioned for Miss Saigon when I was 17 and headed off to London when I was 18 years old to begin production on that show. Was in the production in London for about 1 year and 3 months, headed to New York, did the show over there. And it was quite an interesting experience doing Miss Saigon in New York City, which the experience of having done it there was very different from how it was in London. I mean, I think that's when I started getting exposed to people demonstrating for causes that they felt were important to them. Of course, I was in the show, and there was a lot of controversy that was being generated as far as our casting was concerned. And I don't have to go into it into great detail. But yeah, I remember doing the show one night in previews, and demonstrators blasted through the doors of the mezzanine, and it was like, okay, just gonna keep going. I got to do my job, they got to do their thing. So I think it was one of those things where it was just very interesting going through, having to do that as well as also see what was happening outside of the theater. And then as for Eponine, that was the one though. That was the one I felt was really, 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 really important to do. Because a few months prior to getting cast as Eponine in Les Mis, my agent called me at my apartment and said, I've booked you this audition for a show. And I said, in my head, I knew that I was vocally just wrong for that role anyway. And I'm like, all right, you've booked me for this audition, I'll go. And in my head, I'll probably embarrass myself because I'm totally the wrong vocal part for this, but okay. And then 10 minutes later, he calls me back and says, oh, they don't want to see you because you're Asian. And this was already after I had gotten the Tony. So I'm thinking, well, all right, this is a pretty interesting awakening into the real world. And then not long after that, I got a call. Thankfully, no audition required. I just got a call from Cameron McIntosh's office to have a meeting with Richard J. Alexander, and he sat in front of me in the conference room and said, we would like to cast you as Eponine starting in January of next year. And given the timing of when my start date was going to be, it could very well be interpreted as a stunt to get people into the seats during the tough winter months when theater attendances tend to be lower than normal. But I felt this determination to prove that no, this isn't a stunt. I absolutely deserve this. And so I felt that I needed to prove, like every single night when I sang that song, which was also my audition song for Miss Saigon, that I would nail it and that I would sing it, and I would sing my heart out every single night to prove that, yeah, sure, I'm Asian, but I belong in this show and I belong in this company. So yeah, so the stakes felt higher doing that one. Um, and already, even when I was like hiding, quote unquote, hiding in the ensemble, just from the color of my skin and the color of my hair, you knew that there was someone different that was going up and down that stage. It's like, oh, one of these things is not like the others, you guys. So yeah, but it just felt so fantastic to get to sing that song in this show that I had gotten so obsessed with. I mean, that was my Hamilton, that was my Wicked. You know, that generational show where you get so obsessed with it and that you know every single lyric and every single song backwards and forwards. That was my show. So it was a total dream come true to get to do it, and it felt good to be an Asian person doing that. And if anything, it proved that it could be done. And it just made me feel fantastic to be able to do that. And then I had to leave early because I had to perform at the Oscars. But yeah, not a bad gig. Yeah, and then I got to do the 10th anniversary, which was nerve wracking because I think I might have been the only Asian person up there in a sea of um, musicians and other actors, and like, yeah, I'm representing an entire continent of people. So that was it the stakes were upped again, but I felt it was so worthwhile doing, and I felt so fulfilled and happy and ecstatic to have been chosen to be part of it.
It's amazing. And
now here we are. And now here we are.
So much has changed even in that time, and I think you were really definitely part of pioneering it. I definitely feel like I've benefited from that. So for myself, I've been writing for 12 years. I wrote 5 novels on the way to Love Boat Taipei, and the world that I was trying to publish in was pre-Crazy Rich Asians, pre-Hamilton, and before those pieces and movements opened the door for more diverse storytelling, reaching larger audiences. So my journey is. I started my career in law and government. I'd studied government at Harvard and then went on to law school and worked on Capitol Hill in the US courts for a couple years before moving to Silicon Valley to work in VC and artificial intelligence, where I am now. And I was writing the novels at night on the side and getting my MFA at Vermont College of Fine Arts also on the side. And it was really there that I think I finally felt I was able to kind of overcome the imposter syndrome and feel like I could call myself a writer. And it was also there that I was given the courage and encouraged to write an Asian American main character. So Love Boat Taipei is my first with an Asian American main character, and actually has 30 different Asian American characters. And that for me has been a big part of what I hope to see. I hope to see the 30 different characters on screen, and then hopefully to be discovered into other roles around Hollywood, non-ethnic specific, like you did for Eponine Leia. So it's been an exciting journey for me, and I think I'm just at the beginning of it. As Chloe said, it came out in January and it's now being adapted for film. So I think for me, it's been a new opportunity, but an incredible one to connect with thousands of people around the country and the world. And just really grateful for the way the book's been able to start to bridge cultures and generations as well.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing that everybody seems to be building upon, success of someone else, which is fantastic. And I mean, to be called a pioneer, I feel like I'm not quite deserving of it, because there have been people like George Takei and Miyoshi Umeki and so many other Asian and Asian American actors and actresses and singers, those who've performed on film and on Broadway. It's like I get to benefit from what they have done. So, I mean, Miss Saigon was a pretty huge splash, very highly publicized, incredibly popular. But yeah, I have to give credit where credit is due, and George Takei is one of the pioneers. And so to be able to do Allegiance, which was a story that was based not so much on his life per se, but it was a story based on an experience that he experienced firsthand, which was the Japanese American internment during World War II, for him to be 5 years old and to be on the wrong end of a bayonet along with the rest of his family, and for it to have been dramatized on a Broadway stage, that was a dream come true for him, and a dream come true for all of us to get to work with him and to get to bring that story of social injustice to life. And it's currently streaming, I think, on Broadway on demand. It started its first day of streaming on the 29th of May. And I think they're going to be doing it for about 10 days. And then the DVD is also available. So it reached on Broadway, I think about 120,000 people were able to see it, which is roughly the same number as the number of internees in all of the camps. About 120,000 Japanese Americans were interned. So it was a story that all of us, because of George, felt that it was really important to tell. And I wish that it could have had a longer run on Broadway, if only because people needed to see a story like that, a story of injustice and a story of resilience and a story of holding one's head up high with dignity throughout the incarceration, which is what this group of people were able to do. And it made me feel just proud to be able to be a part of that and to tell a story that normally isn't even in history books, because of how shameful it was and how there were so many people that just refused to talk about it because of the shame.
Right.
So yeah, so Allegiance is something that I can tick off as, being able to tell an important story that should be in American history. And Yellow Rose is another story, where we talk about injustice, but also, say, within institutions that we might deem cruel, there are also individuals with compassion. I don't want to spoil the movie, but I'll just say that much. But Cecilia knows which moment I'm talking about. But yeah, so it's important to tell these stories, because I mean, for all the reasons, it's, as Cecilia touched upon, there's something to be said about seeing yourself reflected on stage or on screen, whether it's you're a reflection of the actor or a reflection of the character they're playing.
Yeah, it tells
to be able
people
to
that
see
their
yourself,
story matters. Their story matters.
Exactly, that they matter and their story matters, and it's inspiring just to see yourself reflected. I mean, when I saw Mulan for the first time, I mean, it's a cartoon, it's a Disney cartoon, and we think of these Disney princesses as these, as nothing particularly deep. But when I first saw this Asian warrior woman on screen, 40 feet high, voiced by Ming Na Wen, and have the handsome hero voiced by B.D. Wong, and of course you hear George Takei, it's like, I can see myself in this cartoon. And yeah, sure, I sang for this character, but still, to be able to see your face 40 feet high, even if it's a cartoon, it's like, just how that makes you feel. It's an incredible feeling to see yourself up there.
Really is, yeah. I've heard so many stories about hearing people going to theaters to see Coco and seeing people around them crying for the first time to see themselves on stage or on the screen.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note that because I'm not one to want to be in front of the camera, so I think it's just as important to see behind the camera, to see the people doing the work. It's always really important for me, for students to see me doing the work, because I'm always like, if they see it, they can do it. It's like that's sort of what the mentality is. And also it's super important for me, for them to see that there's a lot of work involved in it. It takes like a lot of, like, a strong work ethic as well.
Cecilia, can you talk a little bit more about Yellow Rose and how it came together and what you're hoping audiences will take away?
Well, Yellow Rose has been, like, Diane has been working on that project for a really long time. She's probably over 20 years now. And when it hits theaters, I mean, I hope it hits theaters.
We have to will it. We
Yeah,
have to.
we'll will
It
it into.
will hit the theaters.
Yeah, yeah, it will.
Yeah,
I mean, it
COVID's
should.
complicating it, right?
Yeah, it deserves to
Mhm.
be the way that she and August sort of teamed up to put it together to life visually. It deserves to be seen and heard that way.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's been a really long journey for Diane as the filmmaker and director, and then I came on board about almost a decade ago, as I said, and that it was heartbreaking because I in that almost decade it was like there was a lot of no's because you know they didn't know who she was, they didn't know who I was, they couldn't picture any of the stars um that we were trying to aim for, and a lot of times we were aiming for like a bigger I guess country music star so that people would pay attention. And it wasn't until we realized that if we went um, within our own community, the Filipino community, that we saw just how much this could really come to life, and we just felt everybody sort of banding together behind the film. And then uh, here comes this family that says, well, we're going to help you guys put a proof of concept together, and we did, and we were able to put that together, and people finally saw it, and then in comes ABS-CBN. Like out of like nowhere. It's like just sort of magic. I'm really grateful to them. They were like, well, we're looking to invest in Filipino American content and film, and they identified Yellow Rose, and they've been incredible partners ever since. And I credit to Diane. We waited a long time for Eva. She even was like, I'm not. I'll even say no to the money if they tell us that we have to shoot now. So,
Oh
but
my God, that girl is such a star. Oh
I
my God.
know.
I want
Yeah.
people to see this movie
Yeah.
because she is so good.
Yeah.
She
She's
jumps
so
off
good.
the screen. She is so, 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 so amazing in it.
Yeah,
So
she's Rose. It was
yeah,
worth the
she
wait.
is truly,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. And
Wow, she's
that character
incredible.
is so close to her actual personality.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
The
just
potty mouth.
her. Oh my, well, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, she is. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like she just jumps off of the screen. It was like I was
Mm.
watching it. I think when I was watching it for the first time, I'm like, my God, this girl's a freaking star. This girl is just jumping off of this, and so it deserves to be seen in the way it is meant to be. It needs to be
Mhm.
seen in the theaters. It needs to be done right. I mean, we've waited this long, but we got to wait for it to be done right.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think when once people get a look at her, they'll just be ah, they'll just be so blown away.
Yeah, it's not just Eva either. I mean, Eva's by far, she's amazing. It's everyone
Yeah,
that's in it.
yeah.
Princess Punzalan waited
Oh,
for a
Princess
really long time.
Punzalan!
Yeah,
God.
she plays the mother. She was cast, I think, 5 years before we shot the feature.
Wow,
Waited,
it takes such a long time.
patiently.
Yeah.
Yeah, but oh, she's so
Yeah.
good. She's so good.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, she was always well known as a really amazing actress here in the Philippines, and
Yeah.
I think she had her own drama anthology. Her
Mhm.
mom was an actress and a TV host, and also did this thing called Lovingly Yours, Helen, which was an extremely popular TV serial drama where they would base these dramas on letters that people would write, kind of
Mhm.
like Maalaala Mo Kaya,
Mm.
but back in the day. I did one episode when I was like 10, and then another one when I was like 15. So that show had been on the air for so long, and Princess was, my gosh, her work on Yellow Rose is like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it's
Yeah.
just those two together. It's like an acting tour de force by both of them.
I
It's
know.
like,
I was
oh my god, oh my god.
Leia too. Leia was like, fun fact. Leia was day one.
I was
She was day one.
ta-da! Yeah,
Yeah,
day
she was the
one.
first few days of the set, and it was first time feature for many of us, and shooting in Texas. and
Yeah.
a lot of a lot of there was floods. There was so many things that went on, and I'm like, oh gosh, this is like
Yeah.
day one
I
was
was
like,
lucky though. I got to see my
yeah.
family because I have
Mhm.
cousins that live in Austin. So I was able to have dinner and drinks with my cousin and her husband. We were trying to get another one to come out, but he didn't reply to any of us.
Yeah.
He has since passed away. So that's kind of like, kind of tugged at my heart a little bit. Um, but yeah, so it was a good trip because I got to spend time with family, and I got to do this film, and literally 2 days of shooting and
Mhm.
about 15 minutes of screen time. I
I
mean,
think
it's
so.
pivotal, but it's just
Uh,
it's just 15 minutes of screen time, and I had the best time.
it's worth the 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
she like I think the first scene up you I don't know, I guess it's giving away. Anyway, you
Yeah.
you you sing, and I remember
No, that wasn't the first thing I shot, but it was
one of the first, yeah,
one of the no, I think, were we chasing light at that point?
maybe, yeah,
We might have
I
been
think
chasing light
so,
at that point. So it was like
yeah.
getting darker.
Yeah, I remember like because we were all sort of huddled. I guess you can imagine if you do that now. We were all huddled around the
I
room,
know.
and
What's a huddle?
I know there. I remember our DIT like turns to me. He's like, "Oh my gosh, that actress could really sing," and I was like, "Oh my god, he really doesn't know who that is." So I didn't bother correcting him, and so like the
No,
next
no,
day,
no. There's no
yeah,
need for that.
after Leia left, he gets mad at me. He's like, "Why didn't you tell me who that was?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know." I'm like, "I can't help you."
It's his own
Everybody
fault.
seemed to know. Everybody else seemed to know. So
It's all right. It's all
Yeah.
right. I'm
yeah,
Well,
pretty
we'll have to,
anonymous when I do
yeah.
the Disney films.
yeah.
I'm definitely seeing a lot of comments here that everyone wants to see this movie in Manila and on the screen. So yeah, we'll
Yeah,
definitely
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we're
do that.
still in what we call GCQ, or General Community Quarantine. That's what it's called over here.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And people can go back to work, but there is
Mhm.
still social distancing that needs to still be practiced. And I think the cinemas are still closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know how to social distance in a cinema. I don't
I
know
think
that
we're
it's
gonna
even
see,
possible.
yeah, I think theaters are gonna have to change. Like I was thinking at Universal
Yeah.
Studios, there's some rides where you're with your family and there's a lot of partitions around you, but you're all facing a really large screen. So maybe we might see some of that. I know Salesforce actually has built glass walls within their
Oh
offices.
wow.
So who knows? Like I
Yeah.
think there's been a lot of creative innovation that's come out of COVID.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Well,
Oh,
either
for
way,
sure.
yeah, either way, people will see the film. We have to. I mean, there's just been such a big family
Mhm.
like support. We had a great festival run.
Yeah, you guys did, just winning everything.
Yeah, yeah, and we all. I also need to thank Karen Elizaga, who also came in and was just like another Filipina who came in as an executive producer and helped us
Mhm.
sort of bring the film home. It was a lot of work. Like
So
it was
much
a
work
lot
for
of
so many
work.
people.
Yeah, for so many people, it was a village, but it's a beautiful film at the end of the day, and we were
It
all
really is. Oh my God, I don't think I can say enough good things about
Yeah.
this movie. It's, and it's beautifully edited. It never ever feels like, it never feels boring. The story goes, it feels like it goes at a clip. And when the last shot is shown, it's like, that's it. You kind of want it to continue, and you kind of want to see
Yeah.
where the story goes.
Yeah.
But the music, chosen and recorded and written for it is beautiful.
Mhm.
Performances, both musical and dramatic, all of them are just, yeah. And the cool thing about Diane as a director is that she gave all of us, and it was not dictatorial. Yes, there is a script, yes, there's a story, but if something feels false in your mouth, then you have to kind of adapt it without
Mhm.
taking away from the storyline. So we would rehearse. I would be carrying her daughter up and down the stairs, rehearsing with this 3-year-old, and my left arm got pretty jacked at the end of that day. And seeing how it's like, this is the thought that we need to say. Is it important that we say these words? Can we replace it with this to kind of make things a little more succinct or a little more efficient? So those are things that would always be in discussion when we would rehearse.
Mhm.
And yeah, so that no moment felt false. And everything felt collaborative. Everybody was really working hard on this, and yeah, and she knew how to get the performance she wants out of you, and she'll just, you just have to open yourself up and let yourself just, you know just do what it is that needed to get done.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the mark of a great director, right? For
And
Love
she's
Boat
going to be
Taipei,
doing so many more. She's going to be doing so many more features because she's just so good.
Right. And being able to do it in the creative space, the fiction space, is especially, challenging. We've actually spoken with some documentary producers and directors, and it's really a different art form altogether versus like really working with the actors. Cecilia, what's next for you after Yellow Rose? What are you working on now?
I'm just like sort of in a daze how fast everything happened after working for so long. Right before Yellow Rose, Diane and I actually shot a short film for a nonprofit that I started with a colleague of mine in Cleveland, and that actually started streaming. It was about mental health. And then as soon as I got back, there was a film called Lingua Franca, which was written, directed, and starred Isabel Sandoval. And that shot right after I came back from Yellow Rose in Brooklyn. So I'm a co-producer on that. And it's just been like this whirlwind. And I started teaching at NYU in social impact producing and got involved with PJ Raval for Call Her Gunda. And we're working on stuff together as well. And also working with a really amazing director, writer, Clarissa Delos Reyes, who did this short film called Johnny Loves Dolores, which stars Princess Gonzalez. So that's how we actually found her. So there's a lot going on. But first, for me, I'm always kind of torn between film and education, and like how can I do both at the same time. And it always seems to be the through line for that is like social impact work. So it'll always be that. So I think what's next for me is probably this Venn diagram of circles of trying to interweave all of my passions. So.
Right. No, I hear that. I absolutely hear that. I'm doing the same thing with my world of tech and AI. I have some novels on artificial intelligence in the works as well.
Oh wow, that is so cool.
Yeah, but for me, primarily focusing on the sequel for Love Boat Taipei.
Oh wow.
So that's the main project right now, and then starting to think about some other films. And Leah, what about you? Now I know you've been doing a lot of interesting work in humanitarian area that we may not know as much about. I'd love to hear like what you're working on currently there.
It kind of happened in a big way here in the Philippines. When the community quarantine was first declared in the middle of March, which is when it started, national artist and all around great guy, musical director, conductor, composer, Ryan Cayabyab, put out a call to every single singer, musician that he knew, if anybody would want to get involved in this effort called Bayanihan Musikahan, which roughly translated is community music making. Where people can get together and kind of make music. And it would be a series of concerts that every artist would, come on board and do from home and stream on Facebook Live. And it involved a lot of people that had never done Facebook Live ever before. So everyone was basically taking a tech crash course in order to get their streams up and going. There would be hiccups in tech along the way for everybody, yours truly included. But it ended up being an amazing way to raise money and to raise awareness for what was happening amidst this pandemic. There was awareness of the less fortunate and more vulnerable members of society that needed a helping hand. And also, I think we were able to raise money for a lot of the freelancers who all of a sudden were out of work, people in the live entertainment industry that suddenly had no source of income because there are no live events taking place because of this pandemic. So there were monies channeled to that group. There were a lot of monies that went to feeding a lot of people. And I think over like 2.5 months, Bayanihan Musikahan was able to raise in cash and in kind over 122 million pesos, which is, I don't know what that computes to in USD. I mean, I have to bring my calculator out, but it's a lot of money and it helped a lot of people. There were tens of thousands of families that were fed, a lot of people that were helped. And it was about, citizen action. And it was called Taong Bayan to the Rescue. Basically, that was our hashtag. Um, and it was basically the citizenry coming to action, not waiting for anybody to give handouts or anything, but to actually just start trying to help people. And a lot of us got to sing, and a lot of us that who had what it is that we are passionate about and love to do, had that taken away from us. So to be entertaining and to be singing and to just get to practice our art again. Yes, we were helping people, but we were also helping ourselves. And you don't realize how integral to one's mental health being able to practice your art actually is. And you don't realize it until it's taken away. So I just felt very emotional during the first stream that I did, which was on April the 2nd. And I think I was a little calmer when I did my second one on the 29th of May. Yeah, it was so much fun. I got to watch a lot of amazing artists do their concerts from home. I saw so many friends getting to be part of this, and a lot of people all of a sudden becoming experts in live streaming, investing in gear and checking out software and just running with it. And who knows, this platform just might have to be this industry's normal for a little while. So I may have to be streaming again. I don't know when or how or for what, but I'm hanging on to my software and equipment because I have a feeling I'm going to be using all of this again.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think everybody on both sides was able to get helped. The artists got, their art back and were able to practice it again, because we do miss it. Right? I miss performing and singing in front of people, and it's at least knowing that there are people that I get to sing for. It's a nice feeling to have, knowing that I'm able to entertain people, and at the same time, in some small way, we're able to also help a lot of other people get the help that they need. And it was I think everyone had fun.
Amazing. Cecilia, I think you had a question.
Yeah. So I guess, obviously we're all Asian women in this call, or on this panel at least. And we, to some extent, have a public platform. I know that there is some things like privilege, I believe, is intersectional. We're afforded certain things because we're women, because we're Asian. What are the risks, I guess, involved in using your public platform to speak about these issues?
Well, definitely you risk criticism when someone that you don't agree with or who does not agree with you, there's going to be criticism. And and people will go out of their way to make their feelings known. And I guess that's okay. That's what democracy is. Criticism does not mean it's bad or it's wrong. It's just somebody else's opinion on what you're doing and what you say and what you've said. And it's a free country and it's fine. Criticism doesn't mean anything. I mean, yes, it means something to the person who's criticizing, but in the greater scheme of things, it's okay. You just keep, you doing what you feel is right, and you keep going forward, and you try to help as best as you can, despite what anyone else has to say. I mean, I think a lot of artists have endured criticism. I think that's just part of doing theater. I mean, I've gotten my share of lukewarm to bad reviews, and I don't hold it against the critic per se, um, because it's their opinion. Bobby Garcia, who directed Sweeney Todd here in the Philippines,
Mm-hmm.
he had a really nice thing to say about critics and criticism. He said it this way: um, "This is my painting." I was like, "Yeah, okay, that's is your painting, yeah." And if a critic tells me you should have put more blue in that corner over there, my response is going to be, "That's not your painting. This is my painting. I'm going to put the blue wherever I want. I'm going to put the green wherever I want, because that is my art. You can criticize it all you want, but it's still my art, and my vision is what I'm going to do." So it's basically, you stick to your guns and you create your art in the way that you feel is yours. Um, and it will be appreciated. So I guess whatever the risk might be, you just have to keep moving forward and doing as much of the good things and as much of the right things as you can. It's
Mm-hmm.
tough, though. It can be tough. You never know what kind of reprisal you might have to face for the decisions that you're going to make.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's actually really helpful for me to hear as I'm starting to talk with more and more people. I definitely think having that a little bit of thick skin and just being sure of what it is that you're saying, you stand by it. One of the things I've actually been thinking about as an Asian American woman in kind of in these public settings, in some ways we have it better than our male counterparts. I think there are more women voices now, which is, I think that to your point, Cecilia, about intersectionality, that's an area where we have some privilege. On the flip side, though, I mean, I really resonated with Taylor Swift's new song when The Man, in which she creatively imagines what it's like to be a man when everyone believes what you say and every
Mm-hmm.
small accomplishment of fatherhood is celebrated. And she's hilarious. She's awesome.
Oh, I need to listen to that.
It's so good. Yeah, really hit home for me. I think as a woman in the corporate tech world, like I have wonderful allies there, but they're the same issues that strong women struggle with in the workplace about certain behaviors would be fine in a man viewed as bossy or aggressive in a woman.
Yeah.
Asking, why is it all about you? And I think in some ways those are even harder for Asian American women speaking out, because it does break another stereotype about a traditional role as a supporter. And so I think this is less true in new companies, which are more forward-thinking, and all our partners here are forward-thinking companies. And I think that's true with public platforms too. There's always forward-thinking outlets, journalists who are embracing diversity, and those are the ones that really give me encouragement. That again, it's like the diverse voices speaking now. That's important to make sure all our stories are heard.
Yeah, I think just for me, I personally, the risks were always, if I say something, it was always like, you don't deserve to have that opinion because either I look young or I don't know any better, or how are you, like, who are you to say any of that stuff, or just as an Asian woman, you're also expected to be a certain way in some spaces. And for a long time, it was really hard for me to take a lot of the criticism. But I'm of the, as I've gotten older and as I work now with students, my thing has always been, I'm going to take those risks. It's okay, but and I'll take the criticism. That's okay, but say whatever it is you want to say about me, as long as it's constructive. Then we
Yeah,
can have a conversation.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I can understand when a critic says, and this is actually something that a critic said of my voice, um, about a part that I played, that I wasn't the right vocal part for that role. And the thing is, I actually agreed with him. Um, but it's like, but I have the job and I'm just going to do the best that I can. But you know
Mhm.
what? I don't disagree with you. And it wasn't an insult, um, because this critic was actually a fan and, generally loves my work. Um, so yeah, so I didn't take it, you know, I didn't take it too harshly, but of course a criticism is going to
Mhm.
sting. When it is constructive, then absolutely. I mean, I will still keep an open mind and I will still, yeah, okay, yes, I understand where you're coming from. Okay, okay, I get it. Um, what I will like shut myself off to is when things get insulting, is when, when it's your person that's being attacked, whether it's on print or social media. And yes, I've experienced both, and it's never fun, because then my mom gets angry, my brother gets angry. It's like your family starts to get angry on your behalf. And that's like that. I don't think that's anything that any actor or artist ever signs up for. You don't sign up for that. You criticism is one thing, but I mean, insulting is just that's just low. And if anything, to kind of devolve into that, it says more about the person criticizing than it does about the person being criticized. And when I see somebody like insulting someone else, whether it's me or another, like a friend of mine or whatever, I'm like, well, I guess your intelligence or lack thereof, I guess you've just shown your limit right there. And yeah, and I mean, constructive criticism is great. um, Intelligent dissent is great. And dissent in and of itself is not a cause for concern or alarm. And yeah, and I'd like to think it's everyone's basic human right to be able to say what they feel about something, whether you're for or against,
Yeah, and I think that's
and
actually,
not have
yeah,
to experience, any backlash from it. it's
right.
it's an opinion.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think especially important for minorities and for women who we find in the book world, for example, that women and minorities are more likely to withdraw their work if they experience some kind of criticism or backlash, or, versus other demographics. And I think that's partly because they're already somewhat apologetic about having been given their seat at the table.
Mhm.
And so, or it could also be that they're just more aware that if their work has potentially caused harm to a group, they may want to be more sensitive to that. But I do
Mm-hmm.
think a part of it is just that imposter syndrome is really hard, for people who have already been traditionally kept out. So it is important to have a community around you to support you and say, like, no, you should stand your ground, and criticism is just a part of the process, and to be okay with that.
Yeah, and you have to have a really thick skin. I think it's something
Mhm.
that you just have to try and develop. I mean, for example, there was one artist here in Manila, a film and TV star, who was getting a lot of flack for, I think, something that she said. And I think what she said, or it's not so much what she said, but how she said it, I think that was getting a lot of criticism. But even, I mean, she was taking everything in stride. She was even poking fun at herself. And I'm like, this girl's pretty tough. And I think over the many years that she's been in this business, she has developed quite the thick skin. And I have to laud and applaud her for that.
Mhm.
That she's not letting any of this, or she seems to not let any of the criticisms coming her way bother her. And that's, and she's young, but she seems tough. So I'm like, girl, good for you. Good for you.
Yeah. I'm getting a time check from Chloe. So let me ask one more question, and then we're going to turn it over to Q&A.
Okay.
And this just takes us back full circle about our thoughts on the recent events in the United States and how Asians and Asian Americans can be stronger allies to other minority communities. And I think, just to kick off this one, I wanted to talk about some examples where Asian Americans are allies, and these are, again, stories that haven't been brought to light. Cecilia is putting together an Asian American virtual museum, and I submitted them as a potential candidate. But Steve and Mary Park, I'm sure no one's heard of them. They run a program called Little Lights in Washington, D.C. It's a Korean American couple, and they've been there for 20 years, just in the community, running after school programs for everyone, for the kids to come over. And most of the kids, they've said, like, have had a death in the family, or someone in jail. So, I think I hear about so many of those types of partnerships of just humble people on the ground, in service, and I love hearing those stories. But there's definitely more to do. I think we as a community have experienced racism. It doesn't give us a pass when there is also racism in our community, and I think we should definitely seek out opportunities to educate and combat it ourselves. But what are your thoughts?
Definitely. Well, now is not the time to be quiet. I think there's a time when you sit down and shut up, but I think now is not the time. If you're not even a little bit broken by what's happening, then you really need to sort of. I've been telling everyone this. Check yourself. Is basically what I've been saying. And I've been reading a lot about this whole model minority myth, which has really been detrimental, I think, to our community, because it pins us against other communities and also pigeonholes us. It puts us in this place where we think we have to be this pillar of excellence, and then we don't ever kind of rattle the boat or rock the boat or whatever, or rock the cage, whatever it is, whatever term you can think of. And so Abby mentions this virtual library. I got together with a couple of collaborators, Samantha, Dan, and Carlo. We created this library called Perpetual Collaborators to just highlight how the Asian American community and Asian community actually in general has been working with other communities of color, and just how we can continue to work together. And my whole thing is, how do you move the conversation forward? We're going to keep going back and forth in this oppression Olympics, as my colleague has said before. It doesn't move the needle forward at all. But the issue that's going on in the country now and in the United States, we have to stand up, and we have to address it, and we have to recognize that there are some deep rooted issues within our community that we have to understand perpetuated a lot of this. And how do we rewrite that narrative? How do we move the narrative going forward to create real positive change? I'm always thinking, I've said this probably 100 times already in this call, but I'm always thinking about my students. I don't want to ever always hold the mic. So my thing is always to be like, if there's a time when I could just give this to them, to give the mic to them, because I hear the word amplify a lot. I hear it a lot, and I always get like, I have mixed emotions about that word, because it always feels like it's like kind of implying that someone's voice wasn't loud enough, when actually they was loud enough. We just weren't listening. And sometimes when someone's not talking, they're even louder. So I think what we have to do is we also have to listen while we're educating ourselves at the same time. I'm going to stop there. I'll keep going.
I feel like I'm thousands of miles away from the United States, and we in the Philippines, we have a lot of issues as well over here. But as far as issues in the United States, I have a whole bunch of friends that are posting, and I guess I must be living in an echo chamber, because I don't see a lot of disagreement with regards to what is happening. What I read is, say, one of my African American friends will say, I am tired, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am not going to pretend to know what that struggle is like, because I don't. I don't know what it's like to carry 400 or so years of that on your back every single day that you exist. And I'm not going to pretend to understand what it's like to be someone that could potentially be a target just for taking a run in your neighborhood, or watching birds in a park, or sleeping in your home, or just playing. And to be Black and to get to it's, and so all I can do is try and make other people aware that there is this happening, and to stand along with my friends who are themselves speaking out, and to tell them, I can hear you, I am listening to you, I am praying alongside you, I'm praying for you, and all I can do is all I can do. I have no idea at all of what that struggle is like, and I'm not even going to pretend to understand. So all I can do as an ally is to open up and listen and try to empathize and hope that, you know, um, that George Floyd's death will not be in vain, and that it actually moves the needle forward. And this is the sad part, though, is that this is what we think when something like this happens. We've seen Rodney King how many years ago in Los Angeles, and I remember still him going on TV and saying, can't we all just get along? I still remember that. That was a long time ago. So for things to be happening again, it's as if, are we just not learning from history? Are we just not listening? Are we just not taking in the lessons? Or are we just hoping that all of this will be forgotten and ignored and swept under the rug again and again and again? And like a lot of my friends are, they're expressing that they're tired,
Yeah.
and they're done, and they're fed up, and they want to see actual real change. And if there is anything, and I'm hoping that all of the protests help to move the dialogue and help to foster true understanding and conversation and change and empathy and openness, and that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that this time will be different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that I think a lot of people do wish. I hope that this time will be different.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that that's the last time where anybody gets to say that.
Yeah. Chloe, I think I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your backgrounds, your thoughtful responses, and the conversations behind the scenes. I think all of us are really grateful to hear from the three of you today. And so I know that a lot of people have a ton of questions submitted through Zoom already, and we're going to go and transition over to Q&A. So partners, if you are able to turn on your video at this time so that you can all see the faces behind all the API orgs that are here today to represent, to rally all the communities together, to speak up and share what we have. There's 8 meaty questions and less than 30 minutes to get through them. In the meantime, those in the audience, if you have more questions, please ask them in Zoom Q&A down below. But first up, we have Ryan to kick it off.
Thanks, Chloe. Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan, and I'm representing the Asian Google Network. I first off just want to thank the panel. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts in this endeavor. It's been really, really valuable. And thank you also to Abigail for moderating and making this all possible. My question is around the current state of the world. So the way I feel is that currently, the current circumstances has kept many of us socially isolated, many of us kind of wondering about human rights, and it's been a really, really difficult time. My question is, what role can art play in connecting and healing us in today's political and social climate? And how can we do this when many artistic experiences require us to gather socially? So I'll take my answer on mute. Thanks.
Cecilia, you want to go first?
Oh, it's always me.
Yes.
I'm a lead off.
I need my coffee first.
No. I can't remember the exact words that were said. I went to this event a couple of months ago where the organizer said art is always ahead of everybody else. Like it's ahead of politics, ahead of its time in many ways. I also think that art has a way of reaching a larger range of people. I think we can communicate better through art. I think we actually connect better through art. We connect through music. I mean, you guys were talking about Taylor Swift earlier, and you imagine the three of us. Like, I mean, I'm not a huge Taylor Swift fan, but do you know what I mean? Like, it has this way of connecting. I do have this firm belief that if and when we'll get out of this, but like I really do think that art's going to be needed now more than ever. Even now, I mean, how is anyone getting through anything without
Exactly.
picking up a book, reading, picking up a book, or pick up Love Bug Type A if you can.
Good plug. Good plug.
Yeah. watching a movie or even writing. I think that it's just art is therapy, and art is really a cure for many things. I think it's an outlet for all of us. There's an artist in each of us. You know, I have a nonprofit called Art of Me, and really it's not about creating artists. It's about you know, we had students make that name. It's because they're saying you're looking at the individual and who they are and who we are within, and how we tell our story, whichever way we tell our story. So I really think that art has a place now, and will have an even bigger place when we're out of this.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's been my. Oh, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'll go after you.
Yeah, as I mentioned, my background was in law and government, and my parents are actually listening in. My mom grew up in Manila, and my father grew up in Jakarta, Indonesia, and so we've been immigrants out of China for several generations. And you know, when I was growing up, I think I had a bit of an unusual Asian American upbringing. That my parents they wanted me to go into government and politics, and I worked in the government for a couple of years, and for me, like my story is about an Asian American girl who has to split with her parents in some ways. You know, they want her to go to med school, she wants to be a dancer, and eventually she finds that courage to pursue the path that's meant for her. And for me, that was a little bit of my moment with my parents. Like I was in the government world, and I felt like it wasn't right for me at that time. I felt like government was so many young people with no life experience and too much power. And so in some ways it's a very strange, like, full circle for me to come to this point now with my art, where I'm actually carrying out those same things through my art. Like through the writing, I think what we do is we imagine a better world, and we imagine the steps to get there. I actually really think one of the reasons Barack Obama was elected was because we saw Morgan Freeman play a number of presidential candidates in various movies along the way there. And so that is what we can do, is we can creatively create new worlds. We can explore stories that, that people need to hear are going on in communities that they're not familiar with, and we can help to build that empathy.
Yeah. The thing about art is that it hits right in the heart, and it hits right in the spirit when you're watching something. It's not always a cerebral response. It's not that. I mean, when I watch a movie, I tend to laugh really loud, and it's just whatever your natural reaction would be. You tend to laugh, unabashedly and without restraint, or you'll cry, you'll be sobbing all of these tears. And what I find is that when I watch a really good piece of art, or even an artfully edited or fantastic documentary, it hits at the gut. It hits at, before it hits me in the head, it'll hit something else first, and it'll be moving. It'll be moving in my spirit. It'll be moving in my heart first. So it's I think people are feeling anxiety, with the isolation because of this pandemic. There are people who are quarantining by themselves and who are feeling so disconnected. But when you do pick up a book, or when you you listen to your favorite music, or even create a watercolor, or watch a film or a TV show, or even something, crazy or stupid on YouTube. I mean, it's art. It was art to the creator of that thing. And if you find yourself even momentarily distracted, or you find yourself absorbed in what's happening, and there's a lot of good stuff that no one ever has to pay for as well. Mm-hmm. It just kind of it changes something in you, and it's also a good opportunity to see the stories of people that don't look like you, just to gain mm-hmm. a greater understanding of how other people might live. One bit of, one thing that was recommended to me was Never Have I Ever. So that's something yes, that I think my teenage daughter and I are going to have to sit down and watch, because there's a teenage girl in the lead. And I think it's going to be something that we'll both laugh at. I have found a lot of comfort and sanity in watching RuPaul's Drag Race. It's streamed on Netflix here in the Philippines. I know it's on VH1 in the US. But I mean, come on. There is art in just the way each of these queens present themselves. And and it was just one of the best things that I've seen during this quarantine, especially during the finale when each of them had to do everything themselves in their own home. I'm like, these, call them what you will, but these people are artists and amazing and creative and resourceful, and it's like I'm just completely flabbergasted and in complete awe. So yeah, of course turning to art's going to be one of the first things any of us is going to do, because we need to find escape from the stress and the anxiety of what the real world seems to offer us. But it also gives us an opportunity for empathy when we are able to see movies, of experiences that we otherwise would not be able to imagine on our own.
You. Yeah, it sounds like art for social change, representation, and just for the heart. It sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I'd like to pass it off to Hane next for the next question. Thank you again.
Thanks so much. And I definitely appreciate your note on empathy, because that's one of the things that I want to touch on. So my name is Hayne Park. I'm representing the Twitch Asian Guild. And oftentimes being in the arts or engaging in humanitarian work means diving deep into people's experiences to share their stories so people can see themselves represented or have an opportunity to empathize. So how do you handle the emotional labor and the pressure that comes with being such a highly visible figure in these efforts?
So yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah, it is.
I'd love to hear, Leah, like you've had more experience with this.
Okay.
I know.
The emotional. Okay, hey,
first.
you might have to reword that for me, because the emotional labor of the visibility of this. I honestly don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. I need more coffee. Cecilia, can do this one for me first, and I will jump in when I feel that the caffeine has actually hit me in the brain.
The emotional, I'm not I don't consider myself a public figure, but I guess I've been in the public eye more than I'm comfortable with. So, yeah. Can you ask the question again?
Yes. Sorry, Hayne. I'm so sorry, Hayne.
Yeah. I'm happy to take a go at it.
Go ahead.
How do you handle the emotional labor and the pressure that comes with being such a highly visible figure?
Yeah. So I think, when my book deal was announced in July, and I have the book here actually. It's when it was announced in July, I definitely felt suddenly exposed. Like everyone's going to read my book, but when nobody had been reading my book before except a few trusted friends and my agent and editor, and so it was definitely a new thing. Like people were going to read what was just in my made up out of my own imagination. Maybe they would understand things about me that I didn't even realize I was exposing about myself. But in some ways, I think I've also trained for it my whole life, because I was a visible minority in my community growing up in Ohio. And so I always knew that people were looking at me. And I actually did feel really responsible for representing Asian Americans, because I felt like, for some people that I met, I would be the only Asian American they'd ever meet. And I actually did feel like I needed to make a good impression. So, at the same time, because I also grew up in the American culture, I found I could definitely connect better than my immigrant relatives and friends and their friends. And so sometimes it would fall to me to translate and represent. But, I think it's still a challenge. Like, as Leah mentioned, like, you worry about saying the wrong thing or being criticized or being misperceived even. And I think that comes with the history of being a visible minority. So I don't think any leader is going to be beloved by all. And so that's something I have to get comfortable with as I, the more I do hear, feedback. And my family is very supportive and I lean on them. And I also have a close circle of friends that are, around me and they believe in me and I believe in them. And I think that's really important to have that.
Yeah, I think family support is extremely important. And I have a really fantastic support system of my family, namely my very strong mom and my very strong younger brother, as well as a group of like-minded friends and a great network of fans who actually, many of them actually are here today watching this, who get what I'm about, who understand what I'm about, who get what my views are. And yeah, my mom is always concerned. Um, okay, I'll give a couple of examples. So I was asked to be part of an album for children, and the song that I was tasked to sing is Pakitong Kitong, which is kind of sort of like there's a kind of a children's nursery rhyme sort of thing, but it's a jumping off point with regards to crab mentality. That's kind of the underlying message of the song. And the lyric of the song, if I can remember it, I mean, there are people that just want to keep moving forward and want to humbly keep moving forward, but there's always going to be someone or something who will pull them back. And that's crab mentality. And it seems to be very much identified with being Filipino, particularly. Um, And so this was a message song. And my mom, who was at the recording session, immediately had this expression of worry on her face. Never mind that it was one of our biggest singing stars, Gary Valenciano, who was one of the producers on this, who was like a beloved figure here in the Philippines and also around the world in the Filipino community. Um, and it was a song that I really dug, and I felt very strongly that I need to sing this. I mean, it's not like a, hit hard on the head sort of a message, that it's not explicit, but if you listen to the lyric, you're going to kind of get that there are people who are going to try to keep moving forward just to better their own station in life, but there's always going to be someone or something, for whatever reason, pulling them back and holding them back. And so my mom was worried, and she will always worry for me when I do something that kind of has an underlying message like that might be perceived as criticism of someone or something. So she had this worry that came over her face, and I'm like, yes, I absolutely understand, but this is something that I have to do. And so I did it, and there were no negative repercussions, and I still think it's a pretty good song, and I love the message that it had. um, yeah, and the other one is the voice. So I'm always pretty conscious about always trying to, you know, I'm Filipino and I'm very exposed in the media pretty much everywhere. Always put your best foot forward, always, just kind of always show positivity when it comes to being Filipino in the limelight. And I still do try to do my best at that. When the voice first airing, my very real, very loud personality came out, and I was very enthusiastic every time I would turn for someone and try to battle another one of the coaches to try to get somebody to join my team. And I would be unrestrained in my emotion. A lot of my friends were extremely supportive, saying, finally, people get to see what you're really like. And I'm like, yeah, thanks. And then there was also the other side where, my God, she is so OA, which is a term here in the Philippines for being overacting, or for being too loud, or for being too exuberant, or for being too everything. And it was like, I would see message boards or Facebook posts where I'm like, my God, she's so OA, and saying it in a negative way. And I finally was like, in my head, it's like, you know what, like, let them say whatever they want, because what, they're just coming after me for just being me. I mean, I'm not even doing anything wrong. So it's like, you know what, it is what it is. I'm just going to keep doing what I am doing and just being myself. If you don't appreciate it, you can always change the channel. If you're digging it, then by all means just stay. So yeah. So as for the emotional labor of being in the public eye, I've been in the public eye for over 40 years. I think it's something that I've grown used to. Yes, and I'm still very conscious of my image, and that I'm representing my country and my countrymen wherever I go. And wherever I go to perform, I always try to do best foot forward. But at some point there has to be this thing in your head that says, you know what, you just got to be you, and you just got to just got to do your thing and be true to who you are.
Mhm. I'll be real quick. I have I get by with a lot of support from friends and family who always kind of keep me in check. You know, they remind me every day that I'm not as special as I probably think I am sometimes. It's okay. It's good. I welcome it. My friend was telling me today how you might remember when you tried out for the basketball team. I was like, yeah, I remember that.
Oof.
But yeah, but yeah, so just to echo what Leah said, I have a good friend who always is like, you know, one thing I think with Filipinos, we're always sort of, I guess just how I've experienced it, we always have this thing of shame. We're always ashamed to do something, ashamed to speak up, ashamed to whatever. And I like one of my best friends, he's always telling me, you're always afraid to sort of to be in the forefront because you're not comfortable in your own skin. But if I'm always gonna tell you, no matter how long we'll know each other's, do you. So this is, you know, it's always like in my brain ever since we were like, we've known each other for like half our lives now. It's always in my brain. Just do you, and then, you know, and then really quickly, the Four Agreements have really helped me. So I would recommend picking up that book.
Thank you so much for your thoughtful answers. Wanted to pass it to Christine.
Hi, my name is Christine, and I'm representing the Harvard Asian American Alumni Alliance. And just because of time, we'll just be directing our questions to one panelist from this point forward. So my question is to Leah. What types of roles might Asians and Asian Americans still be excluded from in the arts and entertainment industry? And what would it take for Asian Americans to be considered for those opportunities?
Okay. Well, I think we've been able to play I've been able to play an obnoxious, arrogant auntie on a TV show, and I got to sing, and I got to play Filipino, which is actually quite rare. So I got to do those things. I think TV shows like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, it made me extremely proud to be Filipino, that they were actually focusing on Filipino Americans and how unique being Filipino Americans in America can be. And I'm like, I am so happy right now to be a part of this. As far as what roles we are excluded from, well, obviously I think we should be excluded from things where very clear racial, like for example, it's something like Porgy and Bess or something like Showboat, something where clearly there is a black and white narrative. It's like, no, that's not my story to tell, and I don't want to be a part of that. And please exclude me from any consideration with regards to that. But yeah, but I think we will see more Asians on film when there are people that will write for us, and we probably will have to depend upon Asian writers to write roles for us: Filipino American, Indian American, Pakistani American, blank American. I think that's when those more of those stories are written, then more people that look like me will be able to inhabit those roles. But yeah, where it's clear that an Asian does not belong in that movie or play or musical, then it's like, you know what? Absolutely, that's absolutely fine for me.
That makes sense. And thank you to you and Abigail and Cecilia for representing us. I know you just mentioned Netflix's Never Have I Ever earlier. And when I looked that up, Mindy Kaling is the producer. So it makes a lot of sense. When we have Asian producers, we can help, you know, bring diversity in the hiring process.
Yeah.
So thank you. Passing it on to Alaric at Confluent.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alaric, and I'm representing our APIs and Allies group at Confluent here in the U.S. Cecilia, Abigail, Leah, thanks again for being being here with us today. It really is an honor. Truly appreciate it. Now that we're rotating our questions in the interest of time, this one's for Abigail or Cecilia. What makes you proud of the API community in the past year that might not have been as highlighted in the news?
So I can take that one. I think we all know about the farewell success this year, and I think really some of the stories that I told about these humble communities that are just serving quietly. Those stories make me proud of us, because I think they've been doing these for 20 years, not for any glory or to win any awards, just because they care. I'm really impressed with what the Asian American community and the Asian community has done around COVID. We have a lot of really helpful information because of our networks around the world. And, I saw a lot of generosity of sharing information about, I think very early on, there was still a debate, like, are masks helpful or not? Is social distancing helpful or not? And, I think having that good information was really important. And then also a lot of doctors and nurses on the front line of COVID and treating patients and really putting themselves in harm's way to serve our country. I think that all that is really amazing.
That's wonderful to hear. Thanks for sharing that, and thank you to the three of you for your advocacy on behalf of all of us. At this point, I think I'm going to pass it on to JP from Pinterest.
Great. Thanks so much, Alaric. Hi, everyone. My name is JP, and I'm here representing two groups from Pinterest today, Filipinos at Pinterest and also Asians at Pinterest. I think someone in the comments had mentioned that this was a very nice escape from everything happening today. So again, wanted to send our sincerest thanks for everyone who's made the time. My question is for Leia, and I was born in the US, so I don't remember this, but a colleague of mine reminded me of the events in 1986 in Manila, specifically the EDSA Revolution or the People Power Revolution. And for someone who I believe was in Manila, I think that was maybe a couple of years before you went to London.
Yeah, that was around my 15th birthday, so I remember it pretty well.
Yeah, I'd just be curious, like, what was that like? And do you see any parallels in what's happening in the US today? Obviously, something amazing was achieved, and I'm wondering what your perspective is as it relates to what's happening here in the US.
Yeah, I remember celebrating my birthday, and the dad of one of my friends who was there said, it's time for everybody to go home because I think tanks are going to head out on EDSA, which is like the main thoroughfare. And I think everybody was on pins and needles because no one knew what was going to happen. A lot of us were staying home. I remember my mom ordering everybody in the house, okay, we have to cook for everybody that's out there. We have to cook adobo for everybody that's out on EDSA. And so we would wrap, I think I remember wrapping things in banana leaves and then just kind of piling them in bags or boxes or what, and sending stuff out, in order to support whoever happened to be out there. So that was my mom's contribution to the effort. And, and then the next thing we knew, 3 days later, it was like, they have fled, they are gone. And there was this massive celebration in the streets. And the stories that would circulate would be of, even though the military was sent out, and I mean, there is, I think, a threat of the military possibly being sent out like now. I think that's what I'm reading. The military was out in 1986 in February, but no one ever got killed. No one got run over. Nuns were praying the rosary, and people were touching the tanks. They were touching the tanks. And I think the soldiers that were in the tanks were so moved by what was happening, whether it was through prayer or just that these people were protesting and desiring change. And, and it happened. And it's still celebrated every year. And I mean, yeah, there's skepticism now if this change was actually lasting. I mean, this was over 30 years ago. But it was something, if anything, it signaled possibility and hope. That was the overarching takeaway for me as a teenager, was that there is hope where there didn't used to be any. And, a lot of people were just very, very emotional and, wanting to move forward. So it was a pretty exciting time, if I remember it correctly.
Thank you so much for that. And again, to the entire panel, thank you. I'll pass it on to Fatima from Salesforce.
Thank you so much, JP. Hi, I'm Fatima David, and I'm representing Asia Pac Force, which is an equality group of Salesforce. Before I begin, I wanted just to say thank you so much to Chloe, Leah, Cecilia, and Abigail for basically sharing your stories and your truth. And it's truly made an impact in the arts for our API community. And just speaking personally, Leah, you played a large role in my life in terms of music career, everything. So with that being said, I wanted to ask, with everything that is happening in the world right now and is affecting so many people, what does resilience mean to you, and how do you continue to support our communities during this time of distress?
Okay, who is this question for? It sounds like it's for
this,
all.
this was directed to Abigail or Cecilia, but welcome to either of you.
So I'll let Abigail or Cecilia answer that one.
Cecilia, why don't you take this one?
Can you repeat that again?
So with everything that's happening in the world right now, what does resilience mean to you, and how do you continue to support your community during this time of distress?
Oh, resilience. You know, I always hear about you know, so, you know, I've always kind of grown up with the thought that you could multitask, and I always thought like you could do multiple things at once, and it would be okay, and then you just kind of push through. Then the idea of self-care, I guess, I don't know if that's a new thing now, but it's like, you know, that comes up, and you think about the thought that if you are supposed to do anything or affect any kind of change in the world, how can you do that if you're pouring from an empty cup? So, you know, do take care of yourself, but I also think resilience is education. I'm always going to go back to that because I've always believed, you know, I was taught that, but I believe it. I believe that, you know, resilience, you have to be smart about your resilience too. You can't just be loud and proud and not know why, or be loud and proud and fight for something and not know why, or not know any kind of way to systematically change anything. um, so that's what it means to me, and I think, you know, how anyone kind of takes that, or how you view resilience, I think is what pushing forward means to you, but also um, how you take care of yourself, how you take care of your community, and how you are, you know, what you plan to leave for the rest of the world. I think when all this is said and done, I mean, I don't know about any of you, but when this pandemic started, I started to think about like, well, what is it that I wanted to leave in the world? Like, what is that stamp? Because your mind goes somewhere. You have a creative mind. Your imagination goes somewhere. So, so you think that way. But that's really what resilience means to me.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. So we'll bring this next to Matthew from LIAA.
Thanks, Fatima. Hi, Abigail, Cecilia, and Leah. My name is Matt Dewada, and I'm representing LinkedIn Asian Alliance.
I love that surname.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just have to say it. I love that surname.
Yes. So our question is for either Abigail, Cecilia, or Leah, whoever wants to take it. And it's about family. So family is a core component to the cultural identity of many first and second generation Asian Americans. And as Leah, as you mentioned, it's a big support system for a lot of us. I personally grew up with my maternal grandparents in the house, surrounded by, you know, a bunch of uncles and aunties and cousins and uncles and aunties and cousins. So do you have any advice for younger Asian Americans to engage older family members in productive conversations and dialogues that revolve around difficult social and political topics, especially when the lived experience and upbringing of our elders may be completely different from the upbringing of the younger generation?
Yeah, so this one is a really hard question. And I think there's probably no one answer because every family is different, has different dynamics. But I know, for example, I have a good friend, they're a white Korean interracial couple, and he's Caucasian, she's Korean, and his grandmother, his mother, he will not meet with his children because they're biracial. And she lives in Ohio, and it's a point of pain. She didn't come to their wedding, and I think these stories are not uncommon in our community. And so it's hard, right, to find that balance. Like, how do we keep trying when it's painful to do that? How can we try to bring these family members into the 21st century, when they might see that as a disrespect, that they're being asked to change. And his perspective is actually quite interesting. Like, he's basically told his kids, yes, grandma is a racist, and we are not happy about that. And, at the same time, like, we're probably not going to change her. We can try, but like, I think he's put boundaries around that. And I think that's actually healthy. So, as far as like other family members, I know I have friends who are constantly kind of challenging their parents to, or their grandparents to have a more open mind towards people of different races and ethnicities. And I think that's good work. And it's, hopefully everybody in this country is doing that with people that they know and their families. And hopefully over time that'll make a difference, because these are the ones that we have the most influence over.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that. I totally agree with that sentiment. And, the people that we see every day, our family and friends, those are the folks that we can really have an impact the most. So thank you for that response, Abigail. I want to hand it over to Chloe to bring us home.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone for sharing their questions. I know that there's a ton of questions that are submitted through audience Q&A that we're not going to be able to get to because we are past time. And I'm so sorry, but those questions are not asked in vain. I'm going to save them and send them to all the panelists. But to wrap up today, I do want to ask the panelists 2 questions per person. Number 1, how can we best keep in touch with you, keep up on the updates, like which social media channels are the best, which newsletters are the best? And number 2 is, how can people help and keep up with your missions this year?
Is it me again?
Okay, who first? It doesn't matter.
Okay. So I am admittedly not the best at social media. So, but you could find me. I guess Chloe could put in my social media handles there and find me there. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. So, I love LinkedIn. It seems like a space where I don't seem as like dorky when I post. Anyway, that's just my own insecurity of social media. What was the second question again, Chloe? I always get lost in my thoughts.
No worries. How can people help with the missions that you are passionate about this year?
I'm going to sound like a broken record. I would say, educate yourself. There's just so many things out there that are coming out, and there's just, I think everything's happening in the world is asking all of us to kind of go within and check in on ourselves and what we can do and how we can be. But as far as like my personal work, I mean, wait for Yellow Rose to come out, look for all the films that I've worked on to come out. Most important to me, I mean, they're all important to me, but most important to me is the work that I do with my students. And, as much as I could fade into the background and hopefully they go into the forefront, that'll be my dream. So if you want to check out Art of Me and Perpetual Collaborators, that would be, cool.
Okay. I'm quite active on social media. My handles on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are the same. It's at MSLeah, there's no H, LEASALONGA. I also have a personal Facebook page, which is Miss, MISS, Leah Salonga. I'm also on LinkedIn, but I'm hardly ever there. I am so sorry, Matt. And that's pretty much how best to find me. Yeah, through those social media handles. That's where I normally will promote the stuff that I'm doing. And I also have a website, leahsalonga.com, which also has, I think, links to a lot of the other social media accounts that I'm pretty easy to find on social media.
Great. I would say the best way to keep abreast, I know there's a lot of folks who've asked me about the film, is to sign up for my newsletter. You can get on my website, abigailhingwen.com, and sign up there. I'll be sure to send out updates on a periodic basis. And my social media handles, I'm most active on Instagram, but I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and it's the same across all platforms. It's Abigail Hing Wen. As far as helping, so this is the debut year for Love Boat Taipei. I was lucky that it came out in January. I've had, friends with wonderful books come out, like Eileen I.W. Gregorio is on the call as well, and her book just came out. And I urge you to check it out. But definitely my friends whose books have come out during the crisis, it's been harder for them to get visibility for the books. So I think check out the other diverse authors. You can find them, but you'll see them tweeted on my site or other people's sites. But I think that is the biggest thing we could do as a community, is to show that there is commercial demand for diverse stories, and really appreciate your help with getting word out for all these books.
And I am going to share my screen once more.
Okay.
Expand. I have to be a host. Oop. Share screen. So here is a summary of the social handles, the main ones on Instagram. And just wanted to shout out to all our partners again for coming together, bringing their communities to come tonight and sharing their questions. Please check out Love Vote Taipei, Yellow Rose of Film, and Perpetual Collaborators. And at this time, we do want to shout out and help rally the community to support the Black Lives Matter movement. Here are a couple of funds, resources, websites to check out, to help donate to, and to just sign up for their newsletters. Besides that, just take a screenshot of this really fast, and I'm going to hand it back. Thank you all for joining us. It's been such a pleasure. I had so many emails come in, getting excited for literally every single one of you. So thank you for making this happen. A lot of the partners were so pumped in our initial meetings and initial conversations. And that's all we have for tonight.
Okay.
Great.
Oh,
Well, thank
that
you
was
again,
fast.
Chloe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leah and Cecilia.
Bye.
It was really wonderful to talk with you.
Yeah,
likewise. Thank you so much.
Guys, be safe.
All right. Be
Bye,
safe.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.